Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I completed my post-graduation, or I can say I got my confirmation of graduation on the 7th of September and I got my work permit on the 8th of September. That is right the next day. So if you want to know how I got my work permit within a day, keep on watching the video and I'll explain you all the entire process. Have you guys heard about flagpoling? If not, let me explain the procedure to you. Flagpoling is a process that is done when you reside in Canada and you leave Canada but without crossing the US borders and come back to Canada to change your status in Canada. So let's say you have your study permit, so you go from student to worker or worker to permanent residency. So to change your status, you do flagpoling. So let's go through the documents that we would require for flagpoling. You would require your passports, your study permit, confirmation of graduation, and your transcripts. Passports, because let's say you're going to the borders, right? So you would require your passports to establish your citizenship or whatever. Second is your study permit. Make sure your study permits are not expired because it becomes a bit of a hassle to receive your work permits. That's what I know. Third is your confirmation of graduation. It just states that you have graduated and you are eligible for your work permit. Also, I would like to highlight a point here, that is, once you receive your confirmation of graduation, you're not supposed to work. You have to stop working. Not even the 20 hours that are listed on your study permit, because you're no longer a student. And the fourth document, that is the transcripts. I read through certain blogs and Facebook posts where people have done flagpoling with their unofficial transcripts. But to be on a safer side, I carried my official transcripts. Let's go through the procedure that I followed and what all I did on 8th of September. So I reached Rainbow Bridge at 5:30 in the morning. Why I personally chose Rainbow Bridge was because I don't own a personal vehicle and I knew that there is a pedestrian way on the Rainbow Bridge that allows you to go from Canada to US. That is why I opted for Rainbow Bridge. Now, how exactly do you enter the Rainbow Bridge? So there's a parking lot in which there's a duty-free store on the Canadian side, and right besides it there's office door that allows you to enter to the Rainbow Bridge. If you want to still know what exact the location is, it is right opposite the Hard Rock Cafe. So the office is right opposite the Hard Rock Cafe. Then once you enter to go to the Rainbow Bridge, there's a turnstile which requires you to put $1 coin. So make sure you have $1 with you. It is easier if you have change, so that you don't have to look around. There's a machine where you can get change, but better to have it handy. So once you put $1, you can go via the turnstile and you can go on the bridge. It's a straight road. Once you enter, there is no way out other than the Rainbow Bridge. So it is pretty straightforward. When I entered after putting $1 and when I landed on the Rainbow Bridge, I saw that there were already 4 to 5 people who had already completed their flagpoling process. That is, they had already gone to the US borders and came back. I started my journey from Canadian side to the US side. I had all my documents. I went to the US side. It's almost a 10-minute walk, under 10 minutes I would say. When I went to the US side, there's an entry point where you have to wait for the officer to call you. There's an indicator which goes green. After it goes green, it's when they have called you. I went inside and I just declared that I was there for flagpoling. And the officer actually did not ask anything. I had to assume that I have to submit some of my documents. So I handed my passport to him and he had 2 questions for me. One was whether I had previously visited the US and if I had a US visa. Both of which my answer was a no, because I did not have any visa, or I never had visited US. So I would like to highlight a point here that you don't require a US visa to flagpole. After I told him that, and after he had my passport, he entered some details and handed me a white form, and he told me to go by the same route that I had entered. After completing the procedure, which was under 5 minutes, I would say, I returned back to the Canadian side of the bridge. I waited on the other end itself. I did not enter in the office because it is supposed to start at 8. So flagpoling process, or the entire flagpoling process that happens for work permit or PR on the Niagara, on the Rainbow Bridge at the Niagara Falls, is from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight. It only happens on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. These are only 3 days where the flagpoling process happens. So I was almost there by 5:45 to 5:50. I was all done with my going to the US side, getting the paper, and coming back to the Canadian side. Now it was just a waiting game until 8 o'clock. So once we neared 7:30ish, people started standing in a queue. I was 7th in the queue, and while interacting with people who were already there, I got to know that some of them had reached at 2:30 in the morning. Someone had reached at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. So people line up quite early because they don't want to miss their chance of getting the work permits or permits that they want. At 8 o'clock, the officers started calling us in. We went in one by one. The officer there asked us what we were doing there, or why we were present there. So I told him that I am here for a work permit, and after giving my passport and the form that I received from the US end, he gave me another letter and guided me to another office where actually the entire procedure of giving the work permit happens. I would like to also highlight a point here, that is, they only allowed 12 people, rest of them they sent back home. So make sure you reach there early so that you get it done on the same day that you have reached. After getting our form from this office, we went to the Canadian Border Services office. At the entrance, the officer asked me for my passport, both the forms that I've received, one from the US end and one from the Canadian end, and asked us to take a seat. So we were at the Canadian Border Services office. This is the last office that you are supposed to be there. I think we were there around 8:10, 8:15ish, and they started the procedure right away. They started calling us one by one. So first person went first, and likewise. So there were two officers who were actually going through the process, taking the documents and cross-checking, and then giving us the work permits. So when I was called, I went to the officer, and she asked me what all documents I had today to submit her, to give it to her. So I gave her all the documents that I had listed before, that is my passport, my study permit, confirmation of graduation, and my official transcripts. I also gave her my offer letter because I had one, and I had read about people being asked the question of why they want the work permit when they can actually apply online. So before they could ask me any questions, I submitted my offer letter, to which she said that you don't have to submit an offer letter. We don't require an offer letter for now. And then she asked me to take a seat. After a while, after 10-15 minutes, she called me and she told me go to the cashier and pay the amount for the permit, and the amount that I had to pay was $255. So I went to the cashier, I told him my name, and he asked me to pay the amount. So while paying, I did tap my card, which I was not supposed to. We are supposed to just insert the card and go ahead and pay. Visa or debit is both acceptable, so there's no restrictions there. After completing the payment, he gave me another receipt. That was the payment completion receipt. After that, I went to the officer who had asked me to pay and gave her the receipt, and she asked me to sit again. After around 5-10 minutes more, she called me and she handed my work permit, which was a 3-year work permit. And that's really the procedure, quite simple, fast, and on that particular day, I had my work permit in my hand. Some quick tips to remember. Make sure you have your $1 handy. It just helps you not go through the hassle of getting a change. If you're going now during fall or winters, do make sure that you have your sweaters, because you have to stand for a long time. Make sure you go there early so that you are there at least in the first 10 numbers, because they sometimes take 10 people, 12 people. So just make sure that you are there early. And lastly, just enjoy the process and have fun.